Global happenings today. We communicate, we analyze global news. Stay tuned. Hello guys, welcome to Global Happenings Today. We have a trending news here for you, and the headline of the news reads critical analysis on why Supreme Court judgment against Emeka Ihedioha is faulty. But before we go on with details of the news and further analysis, we'd like to encourage you to please subscribe to our channel by clicking on the red subscribe button and also on the bell icon so that you can get notification anytime we publish videos on YouTube. All right, we're going to be looking at before the after the gubernatorial election on March 2nd, 2019, and also we're going to be looking at the judgment, what way the prerequisites, what way the facts and figure, the permutation and combinations that took place that finally resulted to Hope Uzodinma carrying the day. What are the disparities in terms of figures and all of that? We are going to be looking at all of that before we go into deep analysis on why we feel that it's actually a faulty verdict. And when we finish, we'll leave it for you also to talk about it. Now, the first thing is, let's go back to when the election actually took place, as on March 2nd, 2019. The total number of votes in the Imo State governorship election held on March 2nd, 2019, prior to the Supreme Court ruling, was 675,456. Now, I want you to follow me very well as I'm making progress. Follow me. That was the total number of votes, 675,456, as announced by INEC. And the number of accredited voters was 823,743. We understand what accredited voters are, So now let's look at the breakdown. If the total vote was 675,456, let's look at the breakdown, and you can write it down if you're listening to us. Just write it down so that you sum it up to know exactly what we're talking about. Now, Emeka Ihedioha of the PDP actually had a vote of 273,404. Now, all of this I'm reading out to you was actually being announced by the Independent National Electoral Commission, who is solely in charge of electoral processes in Nigeria and who have independent right to make decisions in respect to election. So Emeka Ihedioha, according to the result by INEC, said he had 200, and out of the 675,000 votes, 675,456 votes that were casted on that day, Emeka Ihedioha had 273,404 votes. Uche Nwosu of, I think, the AA then, AA, had 190,364. He was the second person. Now, Ifeanyi Ararume had 114,676. Hope Uzodinma had 96,458 votes. Ohakim had 527. Other candidates, put the other small candidates, we may not have the time to list all of them. They had 39,453 votes. If you add all of those figures, I'll read it again. Emeka Ihedioha had 273,404 votes. That made him a winner. Uche Nwosu was the second, and he had 190,364 votes. Ifeanyi Ararume had 114,676 votes. Uzodinma had 96,458 votes. Ohakim had 527 votes. Then other candidates put together had 39,453 votes. Add all of that together, you will have the total vote cast, which was 675,456 votes. Now, the total registered voters in Imo State was 2,221,008 votes. That's 2,221,008 votes. Accredited voters, those that came to the center and they were accredited, was 823,743. That was it. But by the new computation that we are seeing, it's a different ball game. Now you realize in the one that we just read out to you that the number of vote cast is less than the number of the accredited voters, which therefore means that on a normal political level, that is perfectly all right, because if it is above, then automatically there are mistakes in the computation. Because if, for example, you say you have accredited this number, a higher number of, even, let's use a simple word, maybe you had accredited 40 voters, and then at the end of the day you have 35 votes, it's okay, it's still in between. But if you have higher than 40, automatically there are some, what I may call some hanky-panky that had happened, which is automatically wrong politically. Now let's look at what these guys did in the Supreme Court. Based on the record that had made Hope Uzodinma the winner, Uzodinma, according to them, said he recorded an additional 236,600 votes in the 318 units, based on what the analysis, and that brought his vote to a total. That's if you add 236,600 to the what he had, what was read before now, that's 96,458. If you sum the two up together, you realize it will give you 333,058 votes. They said the one that were not given to him was 236,600. So they now sum it with the 96,458 votes, which INEC actually announced. They said, and with that, he was higher than Emeka Ihedioha. Because Emeka Ihedioha had 273,404 votes. Now, if you now pick that additional number that they have given, which was not, according to them, which was not added to Hope Uzodinma's this thing, if you carry it and then join it, add it up with what we had before, which I'm going to read it down. Now, the breakdown of what Supreme Court ruling was that Hope Uzodinma actually had 333,058 votes. Seconded by Emeka Ihedioha, whom they said he has 273,404. Uche Nwosu had 190,364 votes. Ifeanyi Ararume had 114,676 votes. Ohakim had 527 votes. Other candidates have 39,453 votes. Now, the total of all of this, based on what the Supreme Court had said, is 950,955. 950,955. While the accredited voters, in other words, the people in the whole state that came out to vote, who were accredited in all the different units by INEC is 823,743. So with that, you can see the disparity. How can 825,743 people have been accredited, and at the end of the day, that number which is expected to vote ended up producing 950,955? That clearly shows that everything is wrong with it. Politically, mathematically, it is totally wrong. Where did they hijack the balance that had grown it to that number? Which means whatever Uzodinma had claimed that he has is absolutely wrong. There is a huge mistake somewhere. Your accredited voters must be higher than the number of votes cast. You're accredited, or maybe the same, but really it becomes the same. But if they are not the same, automatically the accredited voters must must be higher than the total vote cast. But a situation where the total vote cast is higher than the accredited voters, automatically that should be rendered null and void. So if no matter how reasonable they will say it, Emeka Ihedioha, Hobu Uzodimma brought up evidence and all of that, as far as these numbers we are seeing was the basis of the judgment, there is something that is heavily faulty in it. Heavily faulty in it. That is what we want you to look at right now. Because personally, when I saw the verdict came of the Supreme Court verdict, we know that nothing can be done about it. But let's be truthful to ourselves that the Independent National Electoral Commission's informations or data is no more independent again and is no more accepted again by Nigeria, because no matter the decision that the Supreme Court will make, it must align with what these people, that's what INEC data were. It must align with the data of INEC. So for them to come up and we see the number of votes is higher than the number of accredited voters, who were the other people who accredited the other people in? That's the question. Who actually accredited the other numbers? How did they vote that? Or does it mean that in the Nigerian constitution, one person has the right to vote twice for a voter for the candidate of his choice? Is that what we are saying? That one individual have the right to vote twice? Automatically is wrong. So mathematically, looking at this and using it as a basis of a political analysis, this whole issue of whatever thing they call Supreme Court verdict is wrong. This one, we are not looking at what the prophet had said. We are not looking at anything. We are strictly on the information provided, and this is to clearly show that nobody, that the Nigerian judiciary does not value the information provided by INEC. And I think that INEC has the right at this point to sue the people who are at that board, because it's a clear indication that they don't even understand the runnings of INEC. They don't understand the meaning of accredited voters. They don't also understand what it means for votes to be higher than the accredited voters. These are some of the issues that must be looked at. And because that same thing came up during the presidential election, Atiku came up with some valid, whatever he claimed it was valid and all of that. But by the time you do the addition and subtraction, you will see huge disparity between the accredited voters nationally and the number of votes cast. It was also higher. And that's why, to some extent, I believe that was one of the reasons that they did not consider his request. So for that of Hobu Uzodimma to pull through when there are wrong informations here and there, how can you tell me that the number of votes cast becomes higher than the number of these things? Why didn't they bring in expert? As much as I know, the judges, they don't have any mathematical knowledge because they just believe in speaking English and law. They would have brought in political analysts and people who are mathematicians, so that they sit back and then explain to them all these things. Because I believe that it was on that ground why the tribunal invalidated the evidence he brought up. The same thing happened to the federal law court. They also invalidated even the appeal. I think it was on the basis of that, because you can't explain that to anybody and it looks reasonable. So whatever we are trying to do, no matter how, because imagine in future, if I have to pick up the data of Nigeria, the data, electoral data of Nigeria, to present anywhere as an example of an election that took place in a particular place, nobody will accept this. Because this clearly shows that the people in charge and the people who think that they know what they're doing, absolutely they don't have any idea about what they are doing. They would have listened, call an expert to sit the 9 of them. It wasn't 9 of them.
But then, if you want to go by that way, that means you're saying that if this was actually falsified, you're giving them a heads up on how to properly doctor it.
Yeah, but already the verdict is already out.
And that's why we are actually that's why Nigerians are seeing the loopholes. If you tell them this now, by the next verdict, if there's going to be something like this, they will doctor it much more properly. But we're just trying to show the loopholes we have noticed, and I'm sure many Nigerians out there have noticed the same thing. I would have expected that the Supreme Court of this magnitude, the apex court in Nigeria should know better than this. To start with, there must be a reason why the tribunal, the appeal, the High Court has expunged this case or have given their verdict. They took, in fact, opposite direction from the verdict. And what makes it very interesting is the fact that on the day of the verdict, it was shifted. I guess the tensions were very high and all that. It was shifted, and when the verdict came out, I knew it came with very mixed feelings. But then, looking at this, a lot of questions come to our minds, particularly my mind. Then, how independent is INEC really?
Yes.
If your figures can be manufactured, arbitrarily and imputed, then that means there's a problem.
And you are not even questioning.
You have not questioned the fact that you are the one that accredited them. You did everything, and all of a sudden,
by yourself. No, the judges were not there during that period. They were not available. You were the one that accredited these people, and you made Nigerians to understand that these are the people that have been accredited. In other words, we've looked through all their documents and everything, and they are the only qualified people to vote. Which therefore mean if there is anything that will happen, and the vote is higher than the accredited voters, automatically
something is wrong.
There are some things that had happened.
Now,
somebody must have voted twice, which will render that such election null and void. So now, the ideal thing that would have been done in this case is to cancel this election and do let there be a rerun.
Good, but instead of a rerun, it was fully given. Ihedioha was sacked automatically, and the verdict and employed is a new Hope Uzodinma. Even though there was a prior knowledge by Father Mbaka, but we don't want to go through that process right now. Now, another thing that comes to my mind is the fact that if then INEC is questionable, which means some of the figures we're seeing here may not be real. We are looking at maybe rigging here and there. Another part that actually makes me not happy is the fact that billions have been assigned for these elections.
Exactly.
So just to make it as transparent
as possible
and corrupt-free as possible. And yet, 9 months, 7 months after elections, disparities are coming. Almost all states have taken to the courts to rectify either they are aggrieved or they want to take back their mandate or they feel that they've been cheated, which means there's so many irregularities everywhere. Is INEC truly independent? That's a question for another day. Now, if this is happening, I think the INEC chair should actually, honestly, he has failed Nigerians. Now, with this, what we are saying, which means by default, the highest level and the highest power now, INEC has transferred their power of independence, have given it to judiciary. And that's why even if you lose in your in elections, relax your heart. You can get it back via the courtroom. And if peradventure, the government of the day have put in their men. I don't want to go there, but it's very tempting to go there. Where Onegan, this is probably the reason why Onegan was removed earlier before time, so that we can do one or two things, because even a lot of lawyers, a lot of sons, a lot of learned people, that's those in the law sector, have started questioning really the judiciary, the verdict of the Supreme Court. But then they all kept saying the same thing: there's nothing that can be done at this stage, but just going to be just analysis, and that's where it's probably going to end, analysis. But it feels really, I feel so not nice, really, knowing fully well that our apex, court cannot give us the right verdict as at when due. Who knows? Maybe, just maybe, this may be what have happened to Atiku as well.
All right, thank you very much. Now, I want to say this with all amount of objectivity. Let the truth be told. I think at this point, for INEC to regain back their respect and their independence, I think they should go back and begin to educate these judges. If it was a situation, if this was a case of, we have to show ourselves. If I was in his shoe, I would have personally, if I was the INEC chair, I would personally make sure that I charge all the lawyers that were part of the panel that spoke during this Supreme Court case. I would have certainly charged them back to court for them to explain to me what it means by the total number of votes being greater than the accredited voter. What makes it legally right for you to accept such as a right verdict, or to use such that data or such figures and make a critical decision like this. This is the time that they need to prove themselves that they really understand what they are doing, because this thing is so glaring. How can I claim that they gave me 500 naira? Let me explain for some of you who don't feel very comfortable with mathematics and all of that. You give me 500 naira to go to the market and buy something. At the end of the day, I now come back 500, no matter what I will buy in that market, no matter the change that should be the money I'm going to come back with, at least all that I've bought in that market should be at least maybe 450, 470. But if a situation it happens that I go to that market and I say, sir, this was the only money I took from you, and when I went to the market, I returned back home with something worth 2,000 naira, they will be questioning. And that question will be, how did you get the other monies? That is not possible. If I had given you 500, whatever you would have bought in that market would have been 500. How did you go by getting the other ones? The credited voters are there. These are the number of people. And all of a sudden, we are seeing it. They vote higher than the accredited voters. This is really crazy. And I don't know why they should have. If I was, sorry, I'm not there, but hey, if I was, I understand what I'm saying. If I was the person who is the chairman of INEC, I will personally sue all the judges, starting from the CGN. I will sue all of them to court for them to come and explain. We bring professionals who are statisticians and those who are mathematicians. Sit down. This is what this represents. I will make sure that I explain everything, and then I'll charge them to court. Because I believe this thing is to show that INEC is nothing to write home about, truly.
But if you want to go by that light, the INEC chairman is from where?
That's why
CJN is from where?
If you want to restore back your respect, you understand?
We're not talking about respect, we're talking about transparency here.
Transparency and respect for your position as the chairman of the INEC.
Maybe this is for this cause that this was meant to happen. Too bad it is the apex. There's really nothing Emeka Ihedioha can do at this stage.
I mean, God, as I normally say it, I don't have anything to do with Emeka Ihedioha. I'm not even I'm not part of PDP, I'm not part of APC, but hey, this is just the truth, and we should handle the truth so that tomorrow in maybe